Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Rabbinic Cynic. I am Rabbi Andrew Bentley, Rabbi Andrew Allen Bentley, just Rabbi Andrew, or you can just call me Rabbi Dude. As I said, if you like this channel, like and subscribe. If you've got any questions or comments, you can always put it in the comments section of the page after I post it, or you can ask questions live, or you can send your questions to rabbibentley@gmail.com. You see right there, we got rabbibentley@gmail.com. That's where you can ask your questions. I saw a couple of questions or comments from last week on my tongue-in-cheek statement about whether or not you're going to get a free Tesla. Right? I know we're not going to get a free Tesla. I know I'm not going to get a free Tesla. But I did find it interesting the opinions that people have on the whether or not having electric cars is the real way, is the real cure to the environmental issues that we're having. I know that one of the people watching commented, we got to fix the grid first. Absolutely right. What if we don't have? How are we going to get the power to charge all these vehicles? Right? If everyone has an electric vehicle, or most people, those who haven't held out by 2035 and still driving, if my Subaru is still going, I might be still driving that. But at the same time, if they're now powering their vehicles with electricity, and we've got an outdated grid that's still relying on fossil fuels, is that really helping matters? Good question. And then again, what about the everything that goes into making a lithium battery? Another good question. I know I talk about cold fusion. It's an ideal situation. We are definitely years away from that. So I do have to say I do agree to a certain extent. I think, as I said, it's a way forward, and that brings me to a topic that I really want to talk about today. As part of this month, I'm doing a series on personal introspection, but maybe also community introspection, and various topics of how we can improve as we're in the month of Elul, the Hebrew month of Elul, preceding the Jewish high holidays. And Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of those high holidays. We call that the head of the year. And as I explained before, there are 4 different New Years, right? But this is considered the New Year of humanity, but not just of humanity, but the New Year that represents the creation of the world, right? There's this idea that the world is 5,700 and how many, whatever Hebrew year we're going into, 83, I believe, 5,783, unless I'm stuck a decade behind, which is quite possible. I always forget that. But and if everyone's there, they want to correct me what the Hebrew year is, we'll see. But I know what it is. It's just leaving my mind. Senior moment. So back to getting rid of my senior moment. So the question is, we know that the Earth is not 6,000 years old, right? We know that from science. We know that from carbon dating. And you can. I remember when I lived in Israel. I believe it was Pepsi. They banned the kashrut certificate the first Jurassic Park movie, because they were using advertising. I think it was Coca-Cola. It was Coca-Cola were using dinosaurs as part of their advertising, and they were like, so the ultra-Orthodox who control the kashrut business, it's a big political issue in Israel. Those of you who live in Israel, and my Orthodox, my colleagues from my cohort could probably attest to this, that there's a lot of controversy surrounding how things, what establishes something as kosher. But to say because someone advertises Coca-Cola using dinosaurs and there were no such thing as dinosaurs is a little kind of like, why should that make it not kosher? But that brings me to an interesting question. The question of environmental responsibility as it is written into the Torah, right? And as we are in Elul, right? As we are coming up to Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of the new year, this new year doesn't just represent the new year for people, for human beings. It's the new year for the planet itself, the new year for creation. It represents the metaphor, the Big Bang, right? Scientifically speaking, the Big Bang, the world started with the Big Bang, right? The universe, right? It's expanding universe, right? Our galaxy is just a tiny little speck amongst millions and an infinite number of other galaxies as well, right? So that's what it's talking about. But when we look at the early, so if let's take the year 6,000 years ago is when human beings first started to look up the stars, first started to think about the meaning of our existence, and that's really what those dates that we talk about, the various dates in the different religions about when creation started or when we start counting the calendar. That goes back to the issue of, we're living on this planet, and we're trying to understand what is our purpose on this planet. So there's an interesting debate amongst scholars, religious critics of religious scholars in religious studies departments across the experts in religious studies and comparative religion. The debate is, and this debate goes back to whether the Abrahamic religions are responsible for the human-centric version of why we are here, what the purpose of the earth is. And when you go back to the sources, you see that back in the 60s, when the environmental movement first started growing, Judaism itself got a bad rap because the Greek translation of the Hebrew, the English translation of the Greek translation of the Hebrew translation, implies that in Genesis the words the earth itself was created for use of human beings, right? That we are supposed to rule over, right? The Hebrew word is shalet, right, which means it could be to rule, but there are a number of different words that are used, right? There are a number of different narratives within the creation narrative, but it's often translated as, well, the earth is for human beings, the animals are for the use of human beings, everything on the earth is for our benefits, for hana'ah, for us to take benefits of and to rule over, right? Lord over the planet. And that led to the environmentalists back in the 60s and religious studies scholars to say, well, in terms of Jewish, the Judaism has had a really hard time coming up with their own eco-theology because it's so inherent in Judaism to understand that the earth is created for, the earth was created for our benefit, for our use. Now, I have a theory. It's not just a theory. I believe if you go through the sources, and I'm just touching on it, it's a very deep subject, but I just want to kind of touch on it as a matter, as a part of Elul, as a part of this experience of introspection and understanding my responsibility. But when you actually look at the Hebrew translation of the words, the word doesn't mean to lord over. The word itself recognizes a responsibility. Adam named all of, right? Again, this is all metaphor, right? This is human beings trying to understand our meaning. Adam names all of the animals and then is told he's had a responsibility towards them, right? Noach, at the same time, when, in the story of the flood and when we were supposed to get rid of, God was angry with us with the debauchery that was going on. We're supposed to, but his primary mission was not really to save human beings, but to save all the animals, right? And in the end, human beings were behaving in such a bad way, it was not the earth that was destroyed, it was human beings, right? Because we were not behaving in a certain way, right? These are metaphors. And so there's a concept called Gaia. Gaia means Mother Earth, right? It's a principle that does the earth have some kind of sentience? In the same way that a human being has sentience. And so if we establish that within Judaism, the planet itself is sentient. And we know this from the fragile ecosystem that there is a sentience that works through science and how the very very fine balance that we have of life on this planet, right? Then if the heat, right, as the planet heats up, we know you get to a certain temperature, you turn into Mars, right? It becomes dust. Maybe Mars at one time was like Earth, right? This is science. This is not conjecture, right? So we just think we can do whatever the fuck we want. Pardon my French. I'm gonna use the F-bomb maybe once. If we could do whatever the heck we want, then because the Earth was made for us, but that's not true. I don't believe that is written into the text. If you start going, Maimonides was the first one to have this discussion, to say, to look into the Hebrew itself is written, has multiple form, it repeats itself what the purpose of human creation is, right? Human beings were created as one, not just man was created first and then woman, right, out of the rib of man. I'm going to segue that into Game of Thrones in a minute. But the humans were created man and woman. And then it says, and then they talk about a specific society, right? So there's two different narratives that talk about the creation of human beings. And one of the things that is very, very important in the creation, in the Genesis narrative, is this responsibility that we have to the earth. And when you go into Kabbalah, you go into this idea that if we get to the spiritual side, if you believe in God and you want to understand that, God put us here as a manager, not necessarily as that we can just take it and just use it for whatever we want, right? And at some point, we're going to get the Starship Enterprise and find another planet. So we're going to terraform, they're talking about some of the moons of Saturn. Titan is one of them. I believe that's the moon of Saturn, and this is off the cuff, winging it. Or we could terraform the moon, we could terraform the Earth, and we could do all of this stuff when the Earth runs out, right? I was watching Doctor Who, and it's just like we used everything up, so we just moved on to some other planets, and then the Earth became a natural preserve, right? This is in one of the first of the Doctor Who episodes. But the idea that there's a sentience to the Earth, I think, is a very powerful idea, that the Earth has a soul, the Earth has a spirit, that the Earth, this is very important in indigenous American culture, not just the Earth, but the animals, that we're not necessarily a higher evolution of animals itself, that we don't know. We know that dolphins are more intelligent than human beings, right? And Douglas Adams in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I think, proved that, right? When they came to the Gorgons came to blow up the Earth, and all the dolphins went back to their planet and said, "So long and thanks for all the fish." So long and thanks for all the fish, right? But the Earth wasn't created for us, right? So this Elul, I believe that we should kind of take that, and we'll go into that in more detail in some later episodes, because there's a lot of information and a lot of ideas, of Kabbalistic ideas. But during this month of Elul, I think it's important to understand that we have a responsibility to this planet for our children and not just our children, but for the planet itself. For whatever is going to evolve, whatever animals are going to evolve, whatever possible other sentient animals may exist, right? We don't know how sentient we know that very intelligent animals are going to evolve into in a million years, in a billion years, right? So we have a responsibility to make sure that happens. We're already, so we can debate the issues of what we can do about the immediate issues that are going to be the result of climate change. That could affect the flooding, the coastal areas, hunger, food security, human rights, refugee situations in certain countries, right? It's going to happen to the poor people for the rich people who are really raping this planet. They're going to figure that out. So I believe we have a responsibility to, compost and recycle and just kind of be mindful of what our own actions are and the impact we can have. And even if you say, well, it's too late, if China doesn't do it, doesn't matter, right? Because China's already doing it. So it's like, so if your neighbor's a nasty human being and goes out and beats people up and robs people. So that means you shouldn't be a good person because your neighbors are not, right? Is that a good argument? Is that a good argument just because China's doing it? So we forget about it. There's nothing we can do about it, right? I understand we shouldn't wreck the economy. The economy is important, but there are economic things that we can do. If put people to work to figure out cold fusion, put people to work to create more renewable energy instead of just saying, well, we got fossil fuels and we got them, we might as well just use them all up. So I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced that going so green is the answer, and to the expense of everything else, like the gas, banning gas stoves for restaurateurs in Los Angeles, right? So it makes it so the people who are going to be primarily affected are people that make Chinese food. And that really disturbs me that my Chinese food won't taste very good. But this is a way of cooking over a fire that we've been using for, since human beings discovered fire in a cave. So whether or not that is that's going to the extreme is a question. I think individual responsibility is a question. Community responsibility, individual responsibility is a fact, something that we can do something about. And to say let's not do anything because of China, or because other countries don't do it, or because other people don't care, or other states don't care, I think is just kind of a cop-out. So I just like to, that's my thoughts for Elul, is I think that, part of our introspection is thinking about what we can do for the greater good of the future and the greater good of this planet that I do believe has a sentience to it. There's no, the way science works and the way the ecosystem works, the way our planet works is when something looks like it's poisonous to the planet seems to be rebelling. And I don't think it takes a rocket science to realize that the planet is rebelling, that there is, that there are things, as things heats up, these horrific weather events happen, right? That's our fault, right? That is our fault. I mean, we could say it however we want to say it, but it's not just this happens every couple. It doesn't. If you look at the graphs, it doesn't. If you look at the data, it doesn't. Right? I'm happy. Send me data that doesn't. Send me some extra data, other data. If you've got data to show this is just a glitch, right? But we can argue about the extent of it. But I think that the fact is there. So this is a proven theory. This is a fact. And so we have a responsibility from a spiritual perspective during this month of El to the planets. Hayom Harat Olam. That's a word that we say on Yom Kippur, that this is the day that God judges the earth, that God created the earth, that the earth itself, right? Humanity is not just the earth. Humanity is the sum of everything else. Hayom Harat Olam is something that we say. It's a prayer we say after the shofar is blown. I'm going to blow the shofar at the end of this live stream. I like to talk about a couple more things, and that brings me to I promised yesterday I watched. This is a spoiler alert, so if you haven't seen Game of Thrones, season 1, episode 2, House of the Dragon, go da. So I'm really enjoying this new series. I think it's a really good new reboot, and I think the episode should be named women power, right? And also the question of really highlights the problem of patriarchy in politics, and in ancient, obviously in medieval politics, and that's obviously an illusion, but I think it translates to certain elements within politics as well. Is that the King the Targaryen king didn't have an heir, so he named his oldest daughter to be his named heir, and there's all this drama going around. Well, a woman she'll never be queen, and she has to accept her position that she's never going to be queen. And the actor that played Rhaenyra, I think does a wonderful job of explaining that, very powerful moments of the king's sister who was who's kind of overlooked, the queen that never was. They refer to her in the episode, kind of saying, "Oh, honey, You got it all wrong. You think that you're going to be bearing their cups. They don't see you as an heir. Men are going to never bend the knee to you. They did, but they're never really going to. Once he finds someone else, once he marries someone else, there's going to be a male heir, right? And all that drama around that. And also Doctor Who, Matt Smith. He'll always be the Doctor to me. The relationship between that, his character, he loves her, right? So we saw that very powerful scene. But again, spoiler alert, her riding in on the dragon, right? While the men are standing there with their swords and all their testosterone, and she just rides in on her dragon, and she lands, and she kind of sits there. She has a reasonable conversation. And that's a powerful statement about the role of women in politics and how us guys we are too quick, we are too reactive, and there's too much of a disproportionate amount, certainly in the United States. I come from England and Israel, which have had number of powerful female rulers, right? Queen Elizabeth I, Margaret Thatcher, whatever you think of Maggie. And Israel, Golda Meir, right? Very powerful female leaders, right? And there are powerful female leaders in other countries. But what's it with America that we only managed to just elect a female vice president, right? That just seems odd, right? The patriarchal nature of the Constitution itself, possibly. Maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe John Martin is making a statement about that. He hasn't. If you read the books, I wouldn't necessarily say he's a feminist, but he's making a very interesting comment. Is a very interesting comment. I'm sure the showrunners are, hyper aware of, what was the original Game of Thrones is all about: a powerful, strong female leader who takes the Iron Throne. Turned out she was a little nuts, and right, she kind of took it too far. But that's human beings in general. So there's that idea that we're all the same, but there's also that very powerful idea of how this patriarchal nature of human society over the millennia. And seeing it played out in a medieval sense, you really could draw that parallel. And I thought Game of Thrones did a wonderful job of that. And speaking of, so I watched the show. I think it's wonderful, wonderful visually. I like the story. The storyline is really good. But especially, I think that the characters' development and how they're really focusing on this strong female leader is wonderful. I'm a big fan. I'm a fanboy. I'm a sci-fi fanboy. So with that, I want to just move on to talking about patriarchy. So the Mar-a-Lago, wow, it's like every day it's something else. So my question is, and I've asked this question before: is this like going after Trump the way the DOJ is, right? Can the government walk and chew gum at the same time? Can the Democrats walk and chew gum at the same time? Is continuing to to push at Donald Trump the way they are, is it counterproductive? Is it counterproductive to creating a less divided society? Why can't we just let him go off into the sunset on his golf course? Yes, he should be accountable, but in the end, will he really be accountable, right? Yesterday, they were talking about, he filed a similar type of paperwork that he normally filed, legal paperwork, to hold up the investigations. It's going to drag out. It's going to drag on. The DOJ is really showing, these are all the documents. Yeah, but it's an issue whether or not Donald Trump is just going to holding on to our nuclear secrets in such a, to use it for his own ends, right? Is he doing that? Right, so we have all of these questions, but why is this all we're talking about? We got some really big issues that are going on in the world right now, and it's like every time you look, it's we're talking about the Mar-a-Lago fiasco. Right? It's a distraction. Do they want him? They never want him to run. I get it. They don't want him to run, but what if this makes him president again, right? So for those of you who love Trump, great. Awesome, makes him president again. But if you're a Democrat and you don't want him to be president again, that's not so good, is it? So why keep talking about it? Let's figure out ways to work together, make it better. instead of looking back, there's a great song by Oasis, "Don't Look Back in Anger," right? Well, it's looking back in anger. The January 6th thing happened. People have been prosecuted. What was Donald Trump's role in that, right? All of these kind of conversations, they're a distraction. We got the midterms coming up. I think that, I think that things are looking good, possibly for the Democrats. We'll see. We'll find out, right? The prognosticators and the talking heads, which is, I'm a talking head at this point, doing this for what it's worth. You can, depends what channel you watch. I don't even watch Fox News and CNN. I read, I look at, I try to look at who's saying what and understand it from those perspectives. I think critical thinking is essential. The idea of, it's always the argument, people that don't know what they're talking about say, do your research. And then they go to a website, there's absolutely no real, credibility. They just said it. And then if you actually go to the stats, you go to their sources, it's like, they take one little thing and you can say whatever you want with it, right? You can take one stat from one small sample and say whatever you want from it. So at the end of the day, the Mar-a-Lago thing, I make jokes about that. He's got, the secrets to what happened at when the aliens landed in the 50s or whatever aliens are living in Palm Springs or Palm Desert or Los Angeles or New York or Utah or Arizona, wherever the aliens live. I think I've got some aliens living on my... I know that I have some relatives from Vulcan because I am a Levite. My mother is a Levite, which was originally from Vulcan. I'm just kidding. But at the end of the day, the point is stop with the distractions. Let's get to the real issues, because the real distraction is we've got some systemic issues with our government, with the way government is structured, that we can't get any real meaningful legislation for healthcare and for food security and for the environment and just getting control of inflation and the role of corporations, and we can go on and on and on, and how big pharma holds us by our organs. So it's literally, right? Our lives, they don't want to cure diseases, they just want to give you something to keep it popping, to give you the poison, right? This is my own little issue. So again, we need to work together as individuals, right? All politics is local, and that's where it happens. We can change things as individuals. We can make the environment better as individuals. We can make the cities that we work with, we live in, work in, better for the individuals. We can make our communities better as individuals by each of us using our talents, and that's what Elul is all about. This month of Elul is all about looking inside and seeing what you can do. What is your why? What is your purpose? What is your meaning to make your life more meaningful for yourself, but not just that, but to have a better impact on your community? And with that, I'm going to start again. I'm going to finish with the still silent voice of the shofar, which will, I'm going to do it this way because I blow better this way. My embouchure. So I'm going to do it Chabad way. Right, so the Ashkenazi way is we do it with one set of blasts. I'm gonna do 2 set of blasts. So this is for you if you want to take a deep breath, let the schmutz out from the week, from the day, from the month, from the year, and you just listen to the sound of the shofar, as I say, the kol demama daka, the still silent voice, that voice inside you, the voice that you know when you're doing the right thing. Everybody, Shabbat Shalom. I'm not Shabbat Shalom. Have a wonderful Tuesday. I'm already at the weekend. And be good to each other. Make this a better world. Bye.